Good. Well, I don't think we started yet.
Okay.
Little circles running here, Tom. Well, there we go. I think we have just begun. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Chris Brown, your state senator, and I want to welcome you today when we once again are going to be discussing our state issues and particularly coronavirus and how it affects everyone here in Atlantic County. If you know anyone who may benefit from the information we will be giving, please share this right now on your Facebook Live so that others can also listen to and hear and share what we're going to be talking about. I also want to thank Scott Cronick and AC Mike Lopez from WOND who have been replaying these conversations on their shows. Thank you to WOND for being live and local. Also, our Atlantic City Press. I always like to give a shout out because we are so desperate here in South Jersey for local and news that affects just us in Atlantic County. And these are some of the last outlets that we have. So we appreciate all they do. To everyone out there, you know that we've been working overtime. I'm grateful that we've had people who volunteered to come in and help us with all of you who are dealing with the broken unemployment system and all the other issues that have come up. We thank our volunteers, and they have been phenomenal. If you would like to volunteer, we would love to have you. We'll train you on the labor issue and the unemployment site, and that way you can help us help others who are still trying to get their unemployment, the benefits they deserve. But our great volunteers from Summers Point, Councilman Jim Toto, he has been awesome, as well as Carol Monday, John Farinelli, and Linwood Councilwoman June Burns and her son Jackson. These are the best. They come in each week, they volunteer their time, they do it simply because they want to help, they want to make a difference. And God knows right now, Atlantic County families appreciate it and everyone loves our help. After our conversation today, we will have some updates, so please feel free to hang in there. And now, to get right to it, this afternoon, we will be speaking live with my guest, Pete Bretones. He is a superintendent for Northfield Community School and president of the Atlantic County Superintendents Roundtable. He is somebody who has dedicated his life to his profession and does everything he can to make sure all our children throughout Atlantic County receive a quality education. So, Pete, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. And how are you doing today?
Good afternoon, Senator Brown, and everyone listening. I'm doing well, busy as could be imagined, but we're healthy, and that's good. I hope your
Yeah.
family is as well.
Well, thank you. And we're doing okay. Mentally, everybody seems to be a little off, but physically, we seem to be doing okay. I wanted to let everybody know a little more, as the superintendent for Northfield Community School, he also then volunteered even further and is the president of all the superintendents roundtable, where the best get together and discuss the future. And so I thought it was appropriate with so many families concerned with their children, K to 12. Where are they going? Are they going to be in school? Are they going to be allowed to go to school? If they are, how's that going to work? Uh, uh, Pete was good enough to say, "Yeah, I'd be happy to have a conversation with you," and he was good enough to be here. And so I just want to point that out to everyone. We're very lucky to have him with us. So, Pete, our entire society is making adjustments in our lives due to this pandemic. Of course, Atlantic County's educators, support staff, families, and children, we all had to make a sudden adjustment when schools closed. Can you briefly touch on what that was like and what did you and your colleagues learn from the experience?
Sure. The entire experience was surreal, to say the least, but it was refreshing to see all of our educators and our families in Atlantic County come together to provide the continuity of instruction for our students, and it was literally done overnight. And I have to emphasize that across our county, the educational community recognizes the sacrifices and adjustments that our families had to make, and we're very grateful for this because without them, our programs wouldn't have been as successful as they were. And now more than ever, the saying "it takes a village to raise a child" rings true. So the lessons we learned from the experience are that our schools are resourceful, dedicated, and the consummate professionals who always do what's in the best interest of our children under these very tenuous circumstances.
Well, everybody appreciates that, I know. And, it's no surprise your answer. It is something that was monumental to turn around and find out that you have to continue to provide, obviously, the education, but now you have to do it virtually. And you're acknowledging how great the parents were and the families were and the loved ones were and the village is to make sure that uh, the children were able to get onto a computer, that they were able to log in. And then, of course, when you don't have the in-class instruction, now the burden falls on the parent who's not only trying to work and earn a living, and now they've become a teacher in many ways. So the partnership between our teaching community and our families was on display, and everyone, I think, did really great.
I agree with you. As I said, none of this would have been possible if it wasn't by that collaborative effort that families and school communities showed by working together.
Well, one of the disappointing consequences of the closing of schools was the delay in graduation ceremonies. I saw a couple virtual ones through Atlantic Cape Community College. I thought Dr. Gaba and all the staff did a wonderful job. I also saw a virtual Army one through Rutgers ROTC program, and I thought they did a phenomenal job as well. How is how are the commencement programs going now that they are allowed to take place finally?
In the end, it all seems to have worked out. Due to the changing guidance, some districts were unable to provide the modified in-person graduations, but all of our districts were able to provide some form of graduation ceremony for our students. And that should be commended because, again, as we're trying to manage the moving target nature of this entire ordeal, our educational leaders showed great resourcefulness in being able to provide for their students and their communities. I'll tell you that across the county, the late changes in the in-person gathering guidelines required a lot of extra work in the last minute, but it was all worth it when we were able to recognize our graduating students and see the joy that they and their families were able to receive with this modified in-person closure.
Well, that's awesome. And now, to me, the biggest question that I get and that parents want to know is looking at the upcoming school year as of right now, are our children going to be able to go to school or are they going to have to remain home?
So the restart and recovery plan is very clear. That's the plan that was given to us, shared with us from the Department of Education regarding our reopening in September. But it's very clear in stating that all districts must provide some form of in-person instruction in their reopening plans. So as of right now, all of the school districts in Atlantic County and across the state are working very hard to develop plans that offer some form of in-person instruction in September. And we're trying to do that as recommended through the plan at least 4 weeks before the start of the school year to give families opportunities to make the necessary adjustments. So yeah, there will be some form of in-person instruction.
So if I understand you, to me, as we've talked before, my hope and my goal and belief would be that for the children, the vast majority of them, the ability to allow them to go back to school and resume their education, the better. And of course, though, we're always aware and have to do it with the understanding it has to be done responsibly and to make sure that we're not endangering those who are vulnerable. So the good news, if I heard you correctly, uh, 1 month before school begins, you and the superintendents in each district is going to let the parents and the families know exactly what's going to be going on, so they have a month to prepare. Is that right?
Yes. So exactly what is going on is subject to the variability of the situation that we're currently in, right? Things could change and do change from one day to the next. So our plans that we want to offer, at least as recommended, at least 4 weeks before the students return to in September, is going to be a skeleton, or at least some form of plan that lets families know how we plan to implement in-person instruction and or hybrid types of instruction, but those plans are subject to change.
Well, I think everybody respects and understands that things are subject to change, but the reality is they're also hopeful that whatever is put out is what is followed. And so obviously everybody's hoping that happens. So there's a recovery plan, restart and recovery plan for our schools that's been put out to prepare for the upcoming year. Can you give us an overview of the plan?
Sure. I'll do my best to be as brief as possible, so I am going to reference some notes. But the plan consists of 104 pages, and it's basically broken into four major areas, which are the conditions for learning, leadership and planning, policy and funding, and continuity of learning. The conditions for learning section speaks about the steps to protect the students and staff physical health as well as their social and emotional well-being, which is a large component of this restart program or plan. So at a minimum, schools must allow for social distancing of 6 feet. If this is not possible, then modifications such as barriers or turning desks to face in the same direction should be implemented in the classrooms. Number two, districts must have cleaning and disinfecting procedures in place. Number three, districts must implement the facial covering requirement. The guidance states that all staff and visitors must wear a facial covering unless doing so inhibits their health. And students are encouraged to wear the facial coverings if social distancing isn't in place, but they must wear it if social distancing is not in place. And that's a big factor to consider. And the fourth area is, or the fourth requirement is screening students and staff for symptoms of the COVID-19 or any history of exposure to COVID-19. Now, all of the plans have to address 10 critical areas. The first one is the general health and safety guidelines. These are the CDC and local health guidelines, as well as the reasonable accommodations for staff and students at higher risk for severe illness. Second critical area is the classrooms, testing, and therapy rooms. The third is transportation. Fourth is student flow, entry, exit, and in common areas to maintain the social distancing. The fifth area is screening and PPEs, which is personal protective equipment, masks, shields, any gloves, anything to protect the physical well-being. And response to students and staff presenting with symptoms of COVID, identified through the screening. Number six is contact tracing in the event that someone is found to test positive. Number seven is the facilities cleaning practices. Number eight are meals for our students, both in district and if they have to be in a remote environment. Number nine are recess and physical education considerations. And finally, the extracurricular activities and the use of our facilities outside of the school hours. All those must be addressed to the plan. The next section in the plan is the leadership and planning section. This speaks about the establishment of district restart committees and school-based pandemic response teams. The restart committee should include district and school level administration, Board of Education members, local education association representatives, educators, parents, and as appropriate, students. The Restart Committee should work closely with the pandemic response teams, as well as health department and other municipal and county government to develop the plan that addresses the 10 critical areas of operation that I just mentioned, as well as scheduling, staffing, and athletics. The third area of the plan is the policy and funding section. This offers suggestions to address the fiscal challenges of purchasing supplies to prepare our facilities to deliver instruction and related service to our students, to address transportation of our students, and to address feeding our students. The Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, which is known as CARES, was established the Elementary and Secondary Education Emergency Relief Fund, which has already provided funding for some districts. There's also districts are applying for reimbursement of eligible expenses through FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, which reimburses up to 75% of costs directly related to the declared COVID-19 emergency. These are two great, positive, and greatly appreciated financial supports. But the reality is that some districts have lost money through state aid. So the budgets that were approved in February for the 2021 school year have been adjusted, and some districts have seen that amount decrease. And as such, districts are working to accommodate for that loss of money. That amount varies from district to district, but when we had a plan in place and we were cut on those funds, invariably some things had to go away as well. The final section of the plan is the continuity of instruction or continuity of learning, and that focuses on the delivery of instruction. The plan recommends a focus on ensuring the delivery of special education and related services to students with abilities, and we have to ensure that we are all continuing to meet the obligations to those students to the greatest extent possible. That is a very real and important challenge. The next area is a focus on technology and connectivity by ensuring that every student has access to technology devices and internet connectivity. The next area is curriculum, instruction, and assessment. The District Restart Plan must build staff capacity to deliver instruction in a hybrid or totally remote environment. So we need to be better prepared to deliver remote instruction in whatever capacity that may be. And the final area of focus is the maintenance of career and technical education programs. That is a very high-level overview of the 104-page document, and there's a lot of detail that goes into each one of those areas, but it does give a nice overview of what we have to consider in the plans.
All right. Well, if anybody doubted that there is way too much bureaucracy and mumbo jumbo, welcome to the state of New Jersey and what they call the road back to recovery. I've read legal briefs that were more concise, and that's no reflection upon you. That's a reflection upon the bureaucracy in our state and their unwillingness to just make a decision and give real guidance. I mean, the reality is what they said to you is, hey, maybe you do this, maybe you do that, but you could try this. But if you try this, make sure you do this. I mean, it's actually, it's just scary for everybody to realize the amount of lack of leadership and guidance that you get in the form of a document that's supposed to be helpful. So I empathize with you and the other superintendents with the fact that all you have is a lack of money because, of course, the governor and they cut it. And then they're telling you you have to do more than you couldn't afford the year before. So as superintendents, I know that that is not something new to you, but I will tell you, I try to make this informative for people. And I didn't want to interrupt you, and you were just going through what the state sent to you. That's not what you and the other superintendents thought of. That's what you're left to deal with. So getting back to what the average person, the normal family, the one who's trying to, feed their kids, they go to work, they come home at the end of the day, they sit at the kitchen table and they realize that this is one big mess and they want to know what's going to happen with my kid in the fall. I understand that on one hand, they want you to do something, but on the other hand, they might not want you to do something. While on the third hand, you got to do it this way. I guess just breaking it down and trying to make it simple for that average person sitting at home who loves their child. They just want to know. They'd like to see their kid go to school, but they're good people. If you tell them they can't, they understand. What can they anticipate? Does it look as though they're going to be able to do the social distancing and have the mask? Does it look as though that's not realistic and therefore they're going to have to do it virtually? Is there anything more specific you'd be able to put out?
Well, it's so unique to each district, right?
True.
Across the county, we have very large districts, and we have very small districts. So it comes down to a matter of facilities, availability of facilities to be able to implement the recommended social distancing or safety precautions to ensure the health and well-being. So if
It's
I had
hard.
to summarize, if we were talking about a typical plan, what that would look like, it's going to be a plan that's going to have to accommodate for various scenarios. One, some districts may be able to provide all in-person instruction and still meet the safety guidelines that are put before us. The reality is that most districts are going to have to form some type of hybrid instruction where some of the students are able to come into the school for in-person and some are not. So it's going to be a rotating type of schedule. So however that looks for each individual district is going to be germane to their particular communities and their density populations. And then the other scenario is that the possibility that we have to go 100% remote. Now, mind you, the plan specifically says that it has to account or allow for some form of in-person instruction in September. But we have to be prepared to go completely remote instruction if conditions change that require that to happen. So most plans are going to account for multiple scenarios. As we go through the Restart and Recovery Plan, we're trying to use it as a guide to the
Right.
fullest extent possible. But you alluded to the fact that there are many questions that remain unanswered. We're developing our individual district plans, and in doing so, we continue to ask the questions that pertain to our respective communities while trying to maintain some form of uniformity throughout the county. So we would love to be to have the guidance that says everybody has to do X, Y, and Z, but we don't have that. That's our current reality, and we don't have the time to wait for that to happen. So our plans are going to
right.
be broad enough to accommodate for various scenarios.
No, I empathize and I agree with what you're saying, and I appreciate the fact that you're moving ahead for Atlantic County families. And so that person sitting at home who happens to hear this, who has a child K to 12 in Atlantic County, if I hear you correctly, first and foremost, each district, each school, obviously is bound by the physical limitations of the school itself. If it's a super small school and you can't get 6 feet away from each other, then obviously they're not going to be able to bring the whole grades back, and they're going to have to figure out how to uh, social distance while still keeping everybody safe. So that's just a reality. And the other reality is that you and the other superintendents and the teachers and the staff, everyone is working very hard because if I hear you correctly, your goal would be to get everybody back to school and do it in a way that you could social distance and follow the guidelines. But unfortunately, the size of the schools and square footage is going to dictate in many ways. The other thing that I find interesting, and I'm curious, with the school buses, obviously there has to be some social distancing plan in place. Is there one that the contractors would need to implement? How would that work?
Right. So the guidance so far has been, the standing order is that we should maintain the 6 foot social distancing, but that of course brings the reality of limiting the capacity on the school buses. So I believe it's around 9 students on a typical school bus. And then in the larger districts that I alluded to earlier, it would be impossible to get your entire student population in during a school day. So there is some further guidance that if the 6 feet social distancing is not possible, that they could put in some type of barriers between seats, stagger the seating, ask students to wear masks. But in none of those scenarios are we able to maximize the capacity of the currently existing school buses. So that is a very real, very challenging part of any reopening plan for any district that has transportation.
Yeah, just common sense would point out how difficult it is for the district. And of course, if you are going to try to retrofit these buses to accommodate the plexiglass, who pays for that? And how long is it necessary? These are new areas, and I appreciate the fact that you are looking for answers because we all know that if we can, the best would be to let kids go back and get some normalcy back in their life. We also spoke before, and there's an understanding that even if there was only going back to school, we need a non school alternative because, as everyone knows, there are teachers who may be have issues, immune issues, health issues, maybe senior in some age groups, and we have to protect them. So making them go to the school certainly would not be appropriate or right. And at the same token, there are children who live with their grandparents, let's say, or they live with somebody who has a challenged immune system. We wouldn't want to make that child go to school either, risk getting it and bringing it home. Is that part of the understanding as to why the state's guidance is to have a hybrid plan?
That is precisely accurate, right? So since all of these scenarios or circumstances that you mentioned are possible, some people are at higher risk of infection or at least the ramifications of infection, and they will not be able to return to school. We don't have real clear, direct guidance as to what requirements are going to be necessary to demonstrate that you're unable to return to school or to work, whatever the case may be, staff or students. So all of our plans have to accommodate accessibility for our staff that is unable to come into districts, to be able to teach remotely, to deliver a thorough and efficient and robust education in a remote environment from not in the school, from their own personal homes. And then we also have to ensure accessibility for students that are unable to come to school for the same reasons to receive that instruction. So that is a very large part of all of our plans. How do we make that fit into all of the other factors, variables that are interwoven of all the reopening plans?
Yeah, it's a lot. When you really boil it down, it is a lot, and understanding that each family may present a different situation. And one of the things that I've tried to do, and I think this is an example, kids going back to school or not going back to school is a health, it's a safety issue, it's a mental health issue as well. And it's about what's in the best interest of our children, not political. And I let the professionals such as yourself, and I respect their opinion, and I let the science and the data dictate just about everything I try to say or do. And one of the reasons I point that out is I remain in touch with the CEO of Atlantic Care, both in Galloway and in Atlantic City, as well as Shore Memorial. And what they tell me is that as of right now, they have plenty of beds, they have plenty of ventilators, they have plenty of PPE, they have plenty of doctors and nurses, they have plenty of ICU units. In other words, they anticipate, and we all understand that as we open up our economy, as children may go back to school to a degree, there is going to be an uptick in the number of cases. So, what's important is that we never allow our hospitals to be overwhelmed, and at the same time we keep the trace alive. So if somebody comes up and tests positive, you trace their who they've been with, and you make sure that they become quarantined, and we protect our seniors, and we protect those with underlying health conditions. And with that understanding is part of the conversation today with you. If I heard from any healthcare professional who said anybody would be jeopardized if there was an uptick in cases, then we wouldn't even be having the conversation because it wouldn't be the right thing to do. But knowing that our medical professionals are prepared and ready right now, your guidance and your fellow administrators is wonderful, and what you're doing to try to find ways to reopen in person in accordance with the guidelines is great as well. So the state says it's attempting to make it easier and less costly for schools to purchase PPE and cleaning supplies. Have you found this to be true? And do you feel confident the schools are well stocked with these items?
I believe the state is trying the best that they can, right? They've in the guidance they listed, I believe it was close to 10 or 12 pages of different resources that are available to districts, like cooperative purchasing agreements and such. But the reality is that school districts have always been utilizing these. You know, it's not our first rodeo when we're looking to cut costs across the state and certainly in Atlantic County. So we are maximizing all of those recommendations offered through the guidance. As far as being stocked, you know, again, the state is trying to make that as available as possible, but the reality is that we have a situation that's not just in Atlantic County or New Jersey, but across the country and really the world. So our suppliers are the ones that are causing us, some districts, not to be able to get all of the supplies right away. So there is some backlog on some of the items. I know in Atlantic County across the board, you know, in speaking with superintendents, that we've been trying to order as early as possible. All supplies, even if we don't have an exact number as to what we'll need, we need to have supplies on hand, and establishing distribution channels or delivery channels that'll be able to keep those supplies coming, so that when we do open, they're a consumable resource, so we have to have the means to have them on hand, because what we can't fall into is the situation where we don't have the supplies to ensure or improve the health, safety, and welfare. We have to be able to clean commonly used areas more frequently. So what we've done is we've gone ahead and ordered as much and as soon as possible in Atlantic County.
Well, that's awesome, and I know that the families obviously will be grateful for that. One of the things that we talked about before too, when we talk about the impact of a virtual school and kids staying home, what I've been advised and explained to by educators and others is that this often impacts that working family the most. In other words, you have a mom or a dad or both, but a single parent in particular trying to work, but then has to stay home or find somebody's house to bring their child to. And it's similar to what you were talking about before. we're at that village where we have to help one another within the community with our children. And then there are some families who may not have access to laptops or the internet. Are we able to accommodate these families?
Yeah, so that's going to vary obviously from district to district. I know all districts are doing everything that they can to work within their means to make any form of remote instruction as valuable as possible. So many districts are trying to go to that one-on-one device technology device for the students and to ensure connectivity. Those are some of the lessons we learned in the closure back in March. How do we have to build up our stocks to be able to facilitate this more seamlessly should we have to go into it again? So I know across the board that's the goal of every district. If any district is unable to, they're making other means to make remote instruction possible and impactful. But yeah, the connectivity issue is a very real guiding principle in our reopening plans.
Yeah, I appreciate all the work everyone is doing. We have to do and make sure that we do better and make sure that every kid, regardless of his socioeconomic background, is able to participate, even if it is virtually. And I know there were other issues that were concerning about the meal plans, and a lot of the children, I know they've set it up. They had set it up in Atlantic City so that they had distribution points. Um, so there are other issues that affect children and their families, many of them beyond the obvious of not being able to go to school, and which is why we appreciate you and the other superintendents working so hard to find ways to follow the guidelines and still be able to bring some classroom instruction back in the fall, and we appreciate that. Is there anything else you would like to share with Atlantic County families? Is there anything else you would like to add?
Yeah, I mean, I just on behalf of all of the school districts in Atlantic County, with our families, I would like to share the sincere gratitude that we all feel for the support we've received from our communities. And we want all of our communities to know that we're doing everything we need to do to make sure that the students and our staff are able to return to school in September in the safest environment possible. As educational leaders, we specialize in the difficult. The impossible just takes a little longer. So we're working hard to make the impossible happen, and it's only in working together that we're going to be able to make this a valuable experience for your children, our students. They're really all of our children. So that's the message I would like our communities to take.
Well, it's well received, and one of the things when you find yourself, so I'm fortunate enough and blessed that I was elected and get to fill the role within Atlantic County, and in that role as a senator, it's been very important to me that we try to bring as much information for our families as possible. And we have quality people such as yourself and the other superintendents that I let everybody know that we are blessed, and Atlantic County is the best county clearly throughout New Jersey. And we remain fortunate because people like yourself and your colleagues really do put children and the education and everything first. So I want to thank you, and please share with your colleagues my thanks and appreciation for you taking the time to be with us today.
It was certainly my pleasure, Senator Brown. I hope I was able to shed some light on our entire situation, and thank you.
No, it was my pleasure. I think you did great. It's difficult because there are a lot of unknowns, a lot of moving parts, and a lot of variables. But While I still have you, what I tell everybody is a month before school begins, you will get a notice on what to expect so that you can adjust. The goal is to have some in-person education provided in each district. Of course, it's going to be restricted based upon square footage, if nothing else. Children have to be 6 feet apart. They have to have masks. They have to be able to sanitize. They have to be able to have the school buses uh, provide transportation. And clearly, you can't retrofit every single school bus under the governor's guidelines. And so there are some challenges, as the superintendent said. They work well uh, with challenges, but now they're about to execute the impossible. So we thank you and we thank everything that you're doing.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. You have a great day.
You too. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So thank you again. So we continue to advocate on behalf of all of the unemployment claims. We're dealing with 2,000 or more at this point. Atlantic County sadly holds the record right now under this administration and with the governor and his Department of Labor, the largest amount of claims. And so myself and my staff, we have been working overtime and doing everything we can. Our heart is there, and it's very frustrating, but we continue to work with the Department of Labor. And here are the following updates that we have. God bless our retirees. A team has come out of retirement to work on older claims. They started last week and will be updating our office weekly. So that's a step in the right direction. If somebody has a scheduled monetary appointment, there is a chance a cold call could come before the appointment. So answer all calls and disable cell blocking technology. If you speak to an agent, they are not saying they will call back, but they are saying they will only call back if more information is needed. So just be aware. I'd hate to see you miss the phone call and then fall into the abyss. Many of you were called back to work in restaurants at our casinos before Governor Murphy canceled inside dining, and that messed up your unemployment because they claimed the few hours. Labor assured me that the problem has been fixed and should be automatically updated in the system by the next time that you certify. Self-employed PUA recipients only being paid the minimum will be reviewed, but it's case by case. A system is being set up to make it easier to submit income documentation. If you are determined eligible to receive a higher wage, payments will be retroactive. This system is still a couple weeks from being totally operational. So we remain here. We remain actively working to resolve as many unemployment issues and claims for as many people as possible. As we shift, Atlantic County is still booked for testing for COVID for July 21st, but you may reserve a time by going online. I will post the webpage in the comments. Atlantic Care is offering testing at 3 locations with prescription. We will note them as well. Southern New Jersey Family Medical Centers are offering tested COVID and antibody testing. We will list them. 2 CVS pharmacies are also offering free drive-through testing. Atlantic City is offering testing for city residents only at 2 locations. Now the other administration debacle, the Motor Vehicle Commission this week announced expiration dates have been extended. As you know, they recently reopened. People waited in hours in line and to no avail. But there are promised that they are going to get their act together and that they are going to be responsive and work hard in making sure that their system is up and running and they're able to do it. But the commission this week announced expiration dates. Expiration dates have been extended. Driver's license, non-driver IDs, vehicle registrations, inspections, and temporary tags. Documents that expired between March 13th and May 31st have been extended to September 30th. Documents expiring June 1st to August 31st have been extended to December 31st. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in. We hope that we're able to answer your questions. You know that we are here for you. We take our role as your senator very seriously. My staff and I want you to know we're a phone call away, 609-677-8266. Any issue, anything we can do to make your life a little better, to demonstrate, if nothing else, we care. We appreciate you. We're going to continue to work for you. And I'm going to continue to do my best to get you the most accurate information as quickly as I can. I know things still aren't easy right now, but they are getting better. And I know, and you know, that with God's help, we're going to get through it. There's nothing we can't do. So God bless all of you. Thank you. And see you next week.